code, do you actually write down your frame size in the options, or do you actually choose 16 by 9 as a drop down?
Okay, let me just quickly show it. I'll go through them. I'll just quickly bring up Compressor and just show you our set of presets. Okay. Custom is what we use. Apple we don't at all. So we've got a group of 4 3s, which haven't been used since 2006, and a group of 16 9s. In the 16 9, we have our DVD, which is one setting only, which I'll talk about in a minute, simply because we've got it ramped to its absolute max quality. Because we do commercials, we can always fit them on a DVD. And that max quality, you're probably going to get 50 minutes on the DVD anyway, so it's probably going to work for doppos and all that anyway. Also, a very easy thing to adjust if you're suddenly trying to fit it on a DVD and you need to, fit 2 hours. Compressor's quite good in that sense that it actually will give you an estimated file size, and you know what file size a single-sided DVD is, so immediately you can probably do the calculations yourself and go, okay, well, I've only got one shot at this, I'll leave a little bit of room and I'll get it down to 3.5 gig and, should be right. Then we've got our H.264 settings. So, because we're commercial based, we just break it down into commercials, 15 second, 30 second, and 60 second. Ignore that one. We have 2 file sizes as well. We have a 4.5 meg, we know is emailable. Anything that goes up on an FTP site or website, we make to around about 9.5 meg. We find at 9.5 meg, anything above that file size, you're really starting to push as far as looking at it and just go, well, you can make, a 30 second at 9.5 meg and you can make a 30 second at 40 meg, and you're watching them side by side, they're looking backwards and forwards, and yes, the 40 meg looks better, but you've got to look at it 10 times to tell the difference. So as far as deliverable and bringing it up on a website and downloading, it's not really worth the extra megabytes. So this is what I highly recommend to do. Think of what you do most. If you do long form, break it up into minutes, right? So go, okay, I've got a setting that is 4.5 meg for 1 minute, which is obviously our 60 second. Or make it into 5 meg if you want. Then do a minute that's 10 meg, do a minute that's 20 meg. And straight away you can look at a program and go, okay, I've got to get this file down to 40 meg and my program is 80 minutes. Well, I've got to use the 5 meg one, So if you break it down to just really lateral thinking, straight away you don't need that many presets, but straight away you can go, okay, I've got a 10-minute program and it needs to be 20 meg, so, you can just straight away pick the right preset because it's broken into minutes, and away you go. MPEG-1 we put on this system, which was a little clever thing, well, clever but not so clever, thing when you buy Episode, there's actually a plugin that goes into Compressor, so you only have to use the one program and you can drag that preset across and it actually sends it back to Episode and codes it and comes back. Doesn't work. So, all that effort, it works occasionally, but not often enough. So, boot up Episode. MPEG-2 is simply a format that we use once again for DVD CAD, for supplying commercials for CAD. So anybody that does commercial work in here, you probably use Rastus. It's simply encoding it for that. What it does is it takes a 16:9 format and pillar boxes it, makes it a 4.3 MPEG to send to CAD. Because any 16:9 MPEG you send to CAD, they usually say the disclaimers are too small. And they kind of click the 16:9 and they need to blow it up on their computer. So you pillar box it, pretend it's a 4.3, send to them, you get disclaimers straight through. And it's actually a tip of the day probably.
You're not uploading via the online system? Or you used to do it through a third party as a VOD file, but now I'm just uploading directly to their own website.
Yeah, the Rastus site?
No, Rastus is their own website.
Their own website.
CAD's own website. They have now their own online processing system, which they're still working on, but they accept MP4s.
Okay, cool.
They've only updated the website in the last few months.
Oh yeah, especially since the start of the year. I'm starting to use it with varying degrees of success.
Okay. No,
It's a lot easier
the
than
girls
yours.
might know about that. I don't actually know about that, but we're still using Rastus.
Yeah. They've actually got a little sort of progress window thing that you can put stuff into now, so it's a lot better than the old system where you sort of send it off in a paper.
Oh, have you ever used Rastus though? Because that's got the full progress.
Yeah, no, well, I did, but I never used that function on it. We just used it to upload it. I don't
Right.
Can communicates back to the agency or whatever via their progress window. Now you don't get emails or telephone calls, they just say, no, resupply a clip.
So you've got to keep on checking the progress window all the time to make sure your ad's getting
Shows how long it's been since I've actually delivered to CAD. Yeah, I don't know. Our guy here that does all that CAD delivery, I thought he was still using Rastus, but he might be doing it that way. So that was originally designed to do that. Maybe we don't use it anymore. I'm not sure. And WMV, once again, it's a little script that uses episode because doing WMVs and compressors is a nightmare.
Does that one work?
No, that doesn't work either. So it's both an episode. So nice and simple. Going into, I won't go through MP1 because all the rules apply for pretty much any compression format, but if I go into the format of, this is a 16.9 to 16.9, H.264, 30 seconds at 4.5 meg. I'll just quickly go through and explain a few things, which are the settings that you're probably all after, and how to keep it simple. And at the end of the day, seriously, make your there's actually a company called Cran on the website. They charge $39, but there's that many presets on there that you probably confuse yourself. Everybody raves about them.
Is that K or C?
C-R-A-M. Just Google it, Cran for compressor. And basically they've spent a month doing every single format possible, and then they now sell it for $39, and they're just compressor presets. So you obviously need compressor. But I am still a believer of making your own, simply because then if you've made your own, you understand them. So if you ever get a weird format or something, you know, that's unusual that you haven't come across, then at least you're going to have half a clue about how to make your own. And two, then you keep it simple. You shouldn't need that many presets at the end of the day. Unless you're getting asked for weird stuff for some web company because they've got some streaming server and all that sort of stuff, usually they'll probably ask for something uncompressed anyway because they want to do it themselves. But sometimes I'll go, we want this with this spec and this spec and this spec, and you go, oh, I've never actually even heard that format. But,
I was just going to say, I don't know if you've used Compressor to do a power to NTSC conversion or vice versa, but if you use the compressor preset, it's shit. But the weird thing was, I did a Google search on it, found a great article from Macworld in America from, I think, B5 with compressor, or no, B5 with Final Cut. Anyhow, the long and short of it is that if you set compressor to the second best settings to do the NTSC conversion, you get a beautiful conversion job. It's just really odd that if you set it to the best, it overcranks it and kills it.
Yep.
But if you undercook it, it works beautifully.
Yep. Something we experimented with a little bit in the early days. We refused to work with NTSC.
It's just something that NTSC delivered to me.
The client comes in with NTSC, I go, after DigiPix, get it converted. But yes, look, it is something that crops up. Hopefully it's going to crop up less and less because NTSC is pretty much the worst format in the world. I'm not against the Americans, but they certainly did not design a good format there. If you do need to format convert for whatever reason, I do not recommend choosing compressor at all.
That's what I'm saying.
There is another tool. I actually have always preferred, which means then you can control it, is to convert it in an uncompressed space first, using, there's several tools out there, and actually, checking everything you need to check to actually convert it to NTSC, and then encoding it as an NTSC encode. But that's something we experimented with 2 years ago now. Unfortunately, I haven't had to do NTSC since. So you're probably correct nowadays, and obviously it's a lot easier than,
I'm using it as a quick fix on the file when somebody brings in an NTSC tape. You've got to use it.